Hello comrades, in this video I'm gonna go over a problem that's very prevalent in today's society, which is the police. Now, with all the current events going on in the world, there's a lot of people discussing defunding or abolishing the police. So in this video I'm gonna go over a few common misconceptions, explaining what defunding or abolishing the police is actually about. You know, since lots of people don't actually know what it means or how to achieve it. First of all, let's go over what police abolition is actually about. Since a lot of people have the misconception that it's an instantaneous process that will cause every citizen to commit vehicle manslaughter in an orphanage and then, riot the Capitol building to try to overturn an election. Now, it's simply not the case. It's rather a gradual process involving a reallocation of resources, responsibility, and funding away from the police and towards a more community-based model of safety that revolves around prevention, treatment, and support. Now, it should be a crisis response unit that is better equipped to deal with crime than the police. Again, I personally think that rehabilitation is, a better option than punishment. And preventing crime rather than punishing people for it would be a much better system than the one we have today. Now, a lot of people might think that a system like that would not work, but let's disprove that claim using empirical evidence. In Eugene, Oregon, a non-profit mobile crisis intervention program called Cahoots has handled mental health calls since 1989 and is often called a model for an alternative to police handling mental health calls. In 2019, Cahoots responded to 20% of Eugene's 911 calls on a budget of $2 million. In 2012, Camden, New Jersey, then referred to as the most dangerous city in the United States, defunded its police department. The city had numerous problems with police corruption and many instances in which police would plant drugs on citizens. As a result, the city disbanded the police department and created a new one under county control, which allowed for funds to be reallocated to community building initiatives. The new department had more officers, but the roles were reframed to the community-oriented and focused on de-escalating violence. A 7-year study showed that violent crime dropped 42%, and the crime rate dropped from 79 per 1,000 to 44 per 1,000. Camden dropped to the list of the most dangerous city in the US to 10th. To expand on that, let's take a look at why crimes happen, because they sure aren't random. Now, poverty is one of the leading causes of crime. Now, economically disadvantaged people will tend to resort to theft and shoplifting to subsist and fulfill their basic needs. A study by the International Journal of Social Economics proved that there is a positive co-integrating relationship between poverty and property crime. Now, in short, property and violent crime tend to be much higher in low-income areas. It's not really hard to grasp, and it's pretty logical that being disadvantaged by the system makes you more desperate and sometimes resort to crime. This would lead me to address systemic racism, but that's for another video. Now, let's come back to the topic of defunding the police. Shifting funding away from it and towards services that actually help meet the basic needs of the people committing the crimes in the first place, and this whole thing goes beyond police brutality. It's about how the prison system, the drug war, immigration laws, as well as other policies and culture that forms the criminal justice system has caused great damage to humanity. Families have been torn apart, people have been unfairly sentenced, and millions of lives have been unjustly destroyed. The police do not prevent crime, they cause it through the violent disruption of low-income communities. It shouldn't even be surprising, as early policing had little to do with actual crime control, but it was performed by volunteer citizens who served as slave patrols. They defended property. Now let's take a look at what alternatives could be created as an alternative to the current policing system. When an individual calls 911 experiencing mental distress, what they need is expertise in de-escalation, social and health supports, and services. Instead, they are met with multiple armed and uniformed police officers. By defunding the police, resources could be reallocated to sectors that actually need the money and help people by, meeting their basic human needs. Now, teams trained in de-escalation and who root their work in community-informed practices could provide crisis support and care. Another aspect of this subject is traffic services. Armed, uniformed officers on the road are unnecessary. Now, high-speed chases often kill innocent civilians, and there's a way better alternative to that, like civilian services. Society often assumes that defunding the police will make it more vulnerable to violent crime. But we have to remember that police do not prevent violence. In most incidents of violent crime, police are responding to a crime that has already taken place. When this happens, what we need from police is a service that will investigate the crime, find what has caused it, and perhaps prevent such crimes from occurring in the future. Now, policing is badly equipped to suit the needs of the people I talked about earlier. When victims are not the right kinds of victims, police have utterly failed, and at times refuse to take the threat seriously. Why would we rely on an institution that has consistently proven that it is rife with systemic racism and other forms of discrimination that will result in some communities being deemed unworthy of support? Instead of relying on police, we should rely on investigators from other sectors to carry out investigations. Social workers, sociologists, forensic scientists, doctors, and other well-trained individuals to fulfill our needs when violent crimes take place. In the event that intervention is necessary while a violent crime is ongoing, a service that provides expert specialized rapid response does not need to be connected to an institution of policing that fails in every other aspect. Such a specialized service does not require the billions of dollars we waste in ineffective policing from year to year. An emergency response unit, separate from civilian services, should handle these situations. Now, to wrap this up, let's talk about how to actually implement this abolishment of police. Spending on the police by state and local governments jumped from about 10 billion in 1960 to 137 billion in 2018, adjusted for inflation. However, the ever-increasing amount of money spent in policing has little relationship to crime rates. In short, the best plan of action is to take the funding from the police, shift it away from them, and towards more community-based organizations that actually help meet the needs of people. All in all, gradually defunding and abolishing the police will greatly benefit society. That being said, I hope you all enjoyed, and I wish you all farewell.